All righty. Well, welcome everybody. My name is Larson Stair. I'm the CEO of DemoFlow here, and I have a very exciting guest here that I'm excited to kind of walk through a few different pieces here. We have Wayne Johnson from Sugar CRM. Wayne, it's a pleasure to have you. How are you doing today?
Good. How are you doing? Glad to be here.
Oh, I'm doing great. It is a very snowy day here in Colorado, so it was a treacherous drive into the office, but I'm happy to be talking with you here today.
Nice.
Well, excellent. Well, what we're going to be talking about here with Wayne here today, before we kind of get into some backgrounds here, is really about moving beyond the technical qualification. How do we include pre-sales into the discovery process? How do we include them in not just the technical qualification, but also business qualification, and really move at kind of work through discovery as a broader team? But before we get into any of that, Wayne, if you wouldn't mind just to give us a little bit of background on yourself before we get started here.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll break it down into three areas. You know, from an education standpoint, I have my undergrad in both computer science and information management, and I have a graduate degree in business administration. So I like to think of myself from an educational standpoint, well-rounded in tech and business. In regards to work, you know, I've started a couple startups. I've been in the IT space, going from tech support all the way up to a CIO role, working my way up there. And then, you know, I've been in pre-sales for about 17 years, both as an individual contributor, as a leader leading regionalized SE teams, as well as my role today as a VP of Global Sales Engineering and Sales Enablement for Sugar CRM. On a personal perspective, I've got 8 kids. I know that's a lot. 4 boys, 4 girls. I've got 4 grandkids too, 2 boys, 2 girls. And like a sales engineer, I like to keep everything balanced. And I'm also an avid woodworker.
Awesome. That's great. Well, I mean, I've known you for a while, Wayne, but I didn't know all of that background. I didn't know you had 8 children. You got some grandkids. That's a very well-rounded person. I'm excited here today, and obviously a very robust career in this space. So it'll be really great to get some of your perspective on the discussion here today.
Absolutely.
So without further ado, if you're ready to jump in, I'm kind of ready to get going. How about yourself?
Let's do it.
All righty. So again, everybody, the theme of today is moving beyond the technical qualification. How do we incorporate pre-sales into this process? But I think where I'd like to start, Wayne, with you is what is the difference between technical qualification and business qualification? Maybe we can kind of start there and kind of take it from there.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, first and foremost, qualification is one of the biggest purposes behind discovery, right? And what I've found in my career is we typically bucket those into business qualification and technical qualification. Business qualification at the highest level is typically BANT, budget, authority, need, and timeline. And technical qualification really revolves around, hey, does the software have the capabilities to do what the prospect or customer is looking for it to do? So it's very basic.
Certainly. Excellent.
And so how our teams typically run through these, and, you know, this is probably going to sound very familiar to all the sales engineers out there. And Patrick Pasong actually writes a couple posts lately on LinkedIn about the history of solution engineering, and it started out as a very technical role. I think there was an article back from 1950 about this. So it's been going on for a long time. But you have sales qualifying a deal, and most organizations run this way. A salesperson or a BDR will qualify a deal on BANT, and they may ask a few deeper qualification questions, and then they bring in this pre-sales engineer once they feel like it's a qualified opportunity, because oftentimes they don't want to waste a pre-sales engineer's time, to have the pre-sales engineer come in and give the technical qualification. Is this a technical fit? I think all sales engineers will chuckle when they hear this because they can relate to it. Have you ever gotten that call from an account executive saying, hey, Wayne, I've got this perfect deal, highly qualified, they're ready to move, I've qualified it, it's perfect, we just need to say yes, we can do these 10 things. So I need you to say yes, here's the list of requirements, can you just do some technical qualification real quick? It's ours to lose. We've probably all heard that, right? So we go through all the yes groups, right? We prepare this awesome demo. We use DemoFlow to highlight that. And then all of a sudden, at the end of the game, the deal gets pushed, right? Mm-hmm. And so, typically, those two different qualifications run separate tracks.
Certainly. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I've certainly been there, on both sides of the equation, right? If I was in pre-sales, you get the deal that gets popped open, you qualify them technically, but then there wasn't enough business qualification that happens, and then we're kind of playing catch up here, or we have a dead deal, or nothing really happens there. So that can be certainly a problem that I think a lot of people encounter here. So maybe, Wayne, so we have this problem right now, right? So we're bringing a deal in, we have pre-sales involved. So how does pre-sales participate in the business qualification side of this? Let's talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the critical part is bringing them in earlier, right? So, and I would say that almost every single pre-sales engineer wants to be brought into a deal earlier. There are a lot of qualification frameworks out there. Medic and MedPick are among my favorite to use. And typically, when we think about a customer or prospect coming to us looking for a solution, the first place they typically start, and let's use Medic for an example, is in the identify pain portion, right? Interesting study showed they studied shyness, and they wanted to know if shyness was inherited. And scientists were actually able to track it down to a particular gene sequence. And I believe that every single sales engineer has a gene within them that gives them intellectual curiosity. So I think this intellectual curiosity gene that almost every pre-sales engineer has really enables them to uncover this pain within the organizations that are coming to us better probably than anybody else, right? Now, the prospect comes to us, they come to us with some pain, and they typically come to us with what they perceive the pain to be, as well as what they think the solution is. And it's our job to use that intellectual curiosity to really go deeper into the pain, right? Oftentimes, you hear people talk about, well, I have this pain in my shoulder. They're Googling, they get their Google MD degree, and then next thing you know, they have some horrible disease, right? So it's our job to really dig deeper. I have this, if anybody ever goes through Demo to Win training, they give you this, right? So what? And SEs are really great at asking that question, right? And so getting SEs involved earlier on to help dig through the pain will help. And then on the other side of that, SEs can tie that pain directly to the capabilities of your software. I'll give you a quick example, real life example. Back when I was an SE, me and the sales rep were talking to a company. They called with the original pain of, hey, my reports are not running fast enough. I was working for a reporting company. That pain probably existed with 95% of the people that called us. Now, we could have just said, okay, well, you have a reporting system that was built 20 years ago. Ours is much faster than that. We can solve that pain. But we kept asking, well, why is this an issue? Why is this an issue? And it turned out that every time they added a new customer, it brought the reporting system down to its knees. And the reason why their customers signed up was to get the data out of the system. That was the main purpose. They were not able to sign up any more new customers because it would cause the system to crash. And so they thought if they just had a faster reporting system, it would solve the problem. Turns out that was not the issue. Turns out their data structure underneath was the issue. And we closed a $1 million deal with a $10 million company. Why? Because their entire business counted on it. It went from solving a $15,000 pain to solving a pain that was really going to decide whether they stayed in business or not.
Yeah. Oh, that's such a powerful story too. And, I think one of the best parts about being in pre-sales and including them early too, is maybe in that situation on initial discovery, the rep uncovers that they have this problem. But what pre-sales can do when you do some collaboration internally is they can restate what the pain was and then ask very strategic questions to dig deeper and deeper into that pain and then really get to the implication there, which can be such a really powerful way to kind of work together as a team to kind of work through a sales cycle. So I think that's a really powerful example, and then certainly a great best practice there.
Yep.
Well, cool, Wayne. So okay, now we've done a great job, right? We understand the pain. We really make sure that what is the implication or problems is if we don't take care of that. So where do we take it from here? Tell me about kind of some of your best practices about after you understand the pain, where do we go from here?
Yeah, and I think where we go after we understand the pain is exactly what you said, the implications of the pain, right? Because if the implication is not large enough, the pain doesn't need to be solved, right? The pain won't need to be solved. So not all pain is created equal, right? Pain should always lead you to a metric. If a pain cannot lead you to the metric, it's probably not worth solving. Now, pain can lead you to multiple metrics. There could be multiple pain with multiple metrics. The more we uncover, the more value we can build up in our solution. So the unique thing about an SE's role is that when a sales rep asks about things that can be used to build a metric. For example, we were selling an integration solution to another company, and it was a software company, and they wanted to move their application. They had an on-prem application. They wanted to create a cloud offering. And the reason why they wanted to create a cloud offering was obviously when they rolled out new features to all the on-prem customers, it took forever to roll out those new features. But if they had a cloud offering, they could manage it much more carefully and swiftly. So we found out, the SE found out in that deal, that if they were able to do this and be successful with their cloud deployment, they were able to release new features down to every 3 months versus 18 months. Think of all that new additional revenue. And they also found out that with each new app feature or application within the Sales Cloud within the cloud that they could release, brought an additional $250,000 of revenue. And they had 18 projects waiting to be rolled in. So right away, we can build that metric quickly, and people are willing to share this with their sales engineers. We are the trusted advisor. When a account rep asks these questions, typically they're like, well, "Why are you asking this?" Right? So we're in a unique place, and this is why it's important. So Ben Horowitz wrote a book, The Hard Thing About the Hard Things. I don't know if you guys have read it. Recommend the book. In the book, he tells a story how he lost a software contract to an air conditioner. Right? Why? Because money is finite, right? The budget a company has to work with is finite. And sometimes we're competing for that budget. And in this situation where he talks about in his book, there was an HVAC system that was going to produce a much larger ROI than what they could prove out in their solution because they hadn't built that metric to be strong enough. Again, because we're the trusted advisor, we can ask those questions and uncover those things in a unique way that our sales counterpart might not be able to simply because of their title.
Yeah. I think that's really powerful. I mean, when I was in pre-sales, it did offer you the ability to ask specific, very metrics-driven questions because you are a technical trusted advisor. So it's very justified in that ask. So it's a really good strategy to kind of have that dual approach there. So certainly agree. Now, Wayne, so what I'm curious about too is how do we go about learning some of these processes? What resources would you recommend if we wanted to get better at digging for pain, uncovering the implications of that pain, justifying ROI? What would you recommend in terms of resources?
Absolutely. So from a qualification framework, if you want to learn MEDDIC, you can always use the book Always Be Qualifying by MEDDIC.academy. Great resource. There's an old resource that is no longer available in its normal format. So I want to encourage everybody that's listening to go here before this information is no longer available. KPIlibrary.com. ServiceNow purchased it, but they do on the website, if you go there, have a download. And I believe they have over 5,000 common KPIs that you could look at by industry. And KPIs are basically metrics. Right? They're metrics. And so if you understand the metrics for an industry, you can try and tie the pain to those metrics that they list there. So I would go there and download that list. There's a book on Amazon called Discover Questions by Deb Calvert. It's a great book as well. And the last thing is stay curious, right? Stay curious. You have that intellectual curiosity gene in you. Stay curious and approach every single customer with the mindset that you have to know their business good enough. And, I was an adjunct college professor in my career at one point as well. And when you go teach a course, you really have to know that topic. Imagine that you're going to go teach a course on that prospect's or customer's business to somebody else. And if you can teach somebody else about how they do business and how successful they are and approach it that way, you'll approach every single account and discovery with that curiosity mindset.
Certainly. Well, that is some great advice there, Wayne, and we'll make sure to share some of the resources that you just mentioned there, because those sound like really great tools that you should have at your disposal to help you run this process, dig for pain. So I really appreciate you sharing some of that. And thank you again for taking the time here with us here today to kind of share some of your wisdom about how can we include pre-sales more effectively in the qualification process, digging for pain, implications of pain. Thank you so much, Wayne, for joining me here today. I really appreciate it.
You bet. Thank you, Larson.
All right. You have a good rest of your day.
You too. Take care.